Hello, everybody. My name is Dee, and welcome to Books and Quirks. Today is Friday, so it's time for a Friday Reads. So, I managed to finish the two books this past week that I originally set out to finish. One I really enjoyed, one not so much. So, I'll tell you about those and all of the books that I plan on reading and continuing with this weekend into the coming week. So, hope you're enjoying some sunshine. It's been pretty nice here in New Jersey. We had rain yesterday, but otherwise it's been really nice. And I hope you have sunshine wherever you are. Okay, so the first book that I finished last week was 99% Mine by Sally Thorne. This is a romance novel and it follows a woman named Darcy. Darcy is a woman that has never quite found love. She's always, since childhood, really crushed on this guy, Tom Valencia, who is a childhood friend of the family. He even lived with them for a time when they were children growing up. And in this book, Darcy and her twin brother have recently inherited her grandmother's house, who passed away. It's a very old house. It's very large. It has a lot of problems, and Darcy does not want to sell it for sentimental reasons. So her brother agrees. Her twin brother agrees because they both inherited like 50%. But they hire Tom, who's a contractor, to kind of fix it up, and they want to see whether they can sell it at a profit. And Darcy agrees, as long as the house won't be torn down, as long as it won't be condemned. If it could be at least fixed up, then she'll agree to sell it. So I did not like this book. And it's such a shame because I really liked Sally Thorne's first book, The Hating Game, so very much. With this book, I found Darcy not to be very likable. I really tried to like her, but she was very, very crass. And I don't always mind that in books, but for some reason it just didn't work for me in this book. And I really just couldn't connect with any of the characters or anything, and I really didn't find the plot to be that interesting. I mean, I always love romance books, but I always like, there to be a good plot with it. This book, I really didn't feel had that, and I don't know, I found myself a little bit bored. There were a few sweet moments in the book, but for the most part, I just wanted to get it over with. And I wound up giving it 2.5 stars. I was going to give it 3, but I just couldn't bring myself to give it 3 stars considering how much I really didn't like it. I still would, recommend that people give it a try because I found, there are a lot of good reviews on Goodreads. People seem to really like this book. It just wasn't for me personally. The second book that I finished was Maybe in Another Life by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Maybe in Another Life follows a woman named Hannah. And Hannah, in the beginning of the book, is recently moving from New York to LA. She's ended a very not necessarily the best relationship, and she's never quite found her roots. I think she's 29 in the book, or 30, and she decides to move back with her friends and family in LA. And her friends are actually her family. Her real family lives in London. So this book follows Hannah's path. Hannah is this book is really about choices. The choices that we make can really push our lives in one direction or another. So this book follows 2 timelines, and one in which Hannah makes one decision this one night when she's at a party. She meets up with an old flame, and at the end of the party, her friend comes to get her because they're heading home, and she has to decide whether to stay or whether to go home with her friend. And although it seems like an insignificant detail, an insignificant choice, you get to see her life in two timelines. One in which she's made the choice to stay, and one in which she's made the choice to go. Now, I know what you're thinking. This is not a cheesy love story. Although I love romance books, like I've said, this book is more about the choices, and romance is kind of, secondary in this book. Um, Her life veers in really two completely different directions, um, depending on the choice that she makes. And it's kind of like there's no like right or wrong choice in this book, but you get to see how choices really lead kind of us down different paths. I really loved this book. I loved it so very much. I wound up giving it 4 stars. It wasn't quite a 5, but it was still a wow, amazing read. And I absolutely enjoyed this. And I was so glad that I did, because I really didn't enjoy 99% Mine. So this book kind of saved it for me, and I really loved it. Okay, so those were the only 2 books that I finished last week. So what I recently started, and what I'm going to be continuing on this weekend, is another Stephen King book, and that is Elevation. Elevation is actually a novella. It's not one of his big chunkers. It's very short. It's only like 200 pages, and I just barely started it at like a few pages only. So I really plan on continuing on with that this weekend, and yeah, and seeing how I like it. So this is one of the few books of his that I haven't read. I plan to go through all of his books again and reread them at some point, but for right now, I wanted to read Elevation since it is so short, and to see what I think of that. So I'll be continuing on with that book, and I can't really tell you much about it until I get more further into it. I didn't even read the synopsis really before I borrowed this from the library, because I just know Stephen King. Stephen King is a no-brainer for me, um, and I'll see what I think of it. The next book that I want to get to this week is a book called Ghosted by Rosie Walsh. This book follows a woman, and she is recently divorced, and she kind of goes away to kind of clear her head, I believe. And then she falls into like a whirlwind week-long romance with a man that she meets. And after that week-long romance, he disappears. So basically, all of her friends think that he's ghosted her, but she thinks that something bad has happened. So although this book starts out as a romance, I think probably it's more like 70% mystery, because the whole book, I think you're trying to figure out what happened. Um, at least that's what I get from the synopsis on the back. So I really want to get into this book. I got it from the library at one other time, and then I never got around to it, so I want to get to it this time. Another book that I am starting is Cursed by Benedict Jacka. This is the second book in the Alex Verus series. Um, I read Fated last month. That was the first book of the series. This is a long series. There's like 10 books, I think, out so far. So, and supposedly, they get better as the series goes on. So I'll see what my opinion is, but I really loved the first book. So this book series follows Alex Verus. He is a mage, so it has a lot of magic. There are good mages, there are bad ones, or dark ones, dark mages. And the whole thing is about, magical objects and magical powers and the different kinds of powers that different mages have. And it's really, the first book at least was so much fun. And I'll be continuing on with the series. I'm continuing on with Cheryl. of Sierra Flames fan. And yeah, it's just a blast, I think. So I hope I enjoy the second book as much. And we'll have to see if it gets better as the series goes on. But the first book alone, I gave 4 stars. So yeah, I can't imagine it getting, much better because it was already so good. So those are the books that I'll be continuing on or that I'll be reading this weekend and into the coming week. And I don't know if I'll pick anything else up. I really haven't planned any other books. We'll have to see um, what my mood is or how fast I get through these. But anyway, I hope you all have a fabulous weekend and a good next week as well. And I will see you all very, very soon. Bye.